All right. As promised, we have another person going into a STEM career. Hello and welcome to Make Learning Stay with Sayate. And you probably hear me say this a lot. I just love what I do. I love the videos. I love it all. But I am so excited today because we are interviewing I got chill bumps, one of my former students. Um, Kayla Williams, and she has been accepted into medical school. She will start in when do we
July.
say? She will start in July. And I would like to think I had like this much to do with it since I was her since I was her science teacher. And it's just it makes me proud because as a science teacher, I tell you all the time, hard work pays off. So she is here today to give us the ropes, to give you some tips and some tricks, or, just to relax or where you need to work harder because, who does not need any advice at all? So again, Kayla Williams, former student. When did I taught you chemistry and physics? I can't remember.
I believe just chemistry.
Okay, so chemistry, and then unfortunately, I had to move, but we have kept in touch over the years, saying hi here and there, and she's going to get us started. Kayla, is there anything else you want to say about yourself?
Well, I guess I can just kind of give you like a little background of myself. So, like, I went to high school in Newton, Texas. It's like a small town in East Texas. And I graduated in 2017. And then I went to Texas A&M University in College Station, and I got a Bachelor of Science in genetics. So, my major was in genetics, which is basically biology with just a little bit more focus on, obviously genetics. And then I just graduated with that degree this past May. So I was class of 2021. And now I am a rising MS1, and that's just the way medical students say first year medical student. So I'm a rising MS1 at the Long School of Medicine in San Antonio, Texas.
All
So
right, that's cool. So, I don't know. I guess just start with telling us about the journey. Um, I remember after I moved and you had started at Texas A&M. Your mom and I would kind of message back and forth on Facebook and how you were in your chemistry class, or I don't want to call them weed out classes, but how at the beginning there was like a little bit of intimidation there. And it made my heart smile because she was saying that at least some of the things that I had taught you had stuck, and made an impression. So I really want students to understand, I guess, the importance of once you get there, is this stuff in high school really important? Or, just tell us a little bit about that journey.
yeah, so going in as a genetics major, I obviously had to take a lot of science classes my first year. So I took introductory biology, introductory chemistry, and it's been so long now, I can't hardly even remember, but just classes like that. And it definitely, like, I know that, well, Miss Davis actually left, like, had a child and you left
In the
school. So
middle. Yeah.
mhm. So I remember there was like this, and then after that, I unfortunately didn't have a very good teacher. So I just like didn't really have a good background in introductory chemistry, especially. And it was very hard for me, especially the first semester, because I basically had no background in chemistry and I had to study really, really, really hard in order to like get that basic understanding to succeed. Like the first two exams, I was just studying for chemistry constantly. But like, I had to work harder than maybe some of my other classmates. Like, for example, my boyfriend now, he went to like a college preparatory high school. And he said like chemistry 101 was like a breeze because he had already been taught that stuff. So if you have the opportunity to like pay attention and learn in chemistry, so like I know she's a great teacher. She's teaching y'all great things. So pay attention and make sure you learn that stuff because it will make your life so much easier when you're in those weed out classes. But like if you're like me and you don't have the opportunity to be taught that information, you'll also still be okay but you might just have to work a little harder. And obviously there's so, especially at A&M, there were so many resources available to me, like all these tutoring, SI sessions, which were supplemental instruction sessions, and lots of different schools have things like that. And so basically what SI sessions are is they're just like review sessions that are taught by people who have already taken the class. So lots of different schools have those kinds of programs, and they're like 3 times a week. And so just taking advantage of like all the resources available to you will help you succeed in like those weed out classes your first year. So
And why do they call them weed out classes, Kayla?
because they're very hard. Well, I think a lot of it, well, when you're going into science, um, they, he just turned on the lights. Sorry.
It
And it
looks
distracted me.
beautiful. Yeah, you're good. It's all good.
Okay. Well, they're basically called weed out classes just because I think it's because students aren't used to the amount of
Mm,
effort that you have to put into learning the material and being successful on the exams. So as long as you like are diligent and um, really study and take advantage of resources that you have, like you'll be okay. But you really have to focus. So
right. Okay. So I really just like how you talked about both sides of the coin. Newton, some of you may have never heard of it. It's a really, really small school, and it's my oven going off. Really small school. Very slim pickings as far as sorry, teachers and whatnot. I mean, good help and good teachers can be hard to find. So having a good teacher, definitely take advantage of it, but don't be discouraged if you don't have a good teacher, or if you just didn't take advantage of that, because she's saying, hey, there's still an opportunity for you to work hard and get to where you're going. Speaking to the high school students, I know I have one student who had one burning question: is, yes, you take the required courses in order to get into you take the required courses in order to get into the undergrad or whatever, but what else would you suggest as far as extracurricular activities, volunteer hours? What is something that could possibly give you the edge, knowing that you want to go to undergrad to eventually go into medical school?
yeah. So I just want to make like a side note. You
Yeah.
don't have to major in STEM to be a doctor. So you just have to take the prerequisites. You can major in anything that you like. So you can major in music, you can major in English, you could, lots of biomedical engineering's popular. I don't know why you would do that, but you can. But lots of people just do like I'm doing genetics. Um, some other people do biology. Lots of people just do that because it's like easy and then the coursework's already built in. But I just want to
Hmm.
put it out there. If you want to do English or you want to do something else, you definitely can. You just have to take the prereqs that you have to take.
Right,
But
right.
back to or their question. Um, so I think the thing that I did that I thought was really helpful for me, first off, just developing like how to think like a scientist,
Mm.
is research. Research is so important when you're going into med school. It's almost like they suggest you do it, but it's pretty much like a requirement. So the way that I got into research is, well, A&M's like a tier 1 research institution, but like there's always research being done in other places too. So you basically just want to go on whatever department you're interested in's website. So usually you would want to do like something biology or chemistry, or psychology is a good one as well, or neuroscience if they have that. Go on the department's website of the school that you're going to, and there will be a faculty list, and then you can, most of the time they'll be like their research interests listed. And so you read about their research, and if it kind of, you probably won't understand what's going on, but if it kind of sounds like it piques your interest, then you can email them and say like, hey, I'm an undergrad, and give your major, what year you are, things like that, and say like, I'm interested in volunteering in your lab. And I actually was required to do research as part of my degree. But so I like kind of did it saying, I would like to join your lab to get credit for class. But if you're wanting to do med school and you're not required to do for credit, you could just say like, I'm interested in joining your lab to gain research experience, because I'm interested in your project, and also I'm interested in maybe going to medical school one day, and I know that this is something that I want to use to like bolster my understanding of science and like kind of look better on an application. And so I was just getting involved in research as soon as you can. Maybe not your freshman year, just because you won't know a lot, you won't be able to do much. If you're a freshman, they'll just have you washing dishes. So maybe wait until like you're a sophomore. But sophomore year is a really good time to start getting involved in research. And then also, it's very important to have volunteering hours and shadowing hours. So volunteering straightforward. So I'm going to talk a little bit about shadowing. So shadowing is basically when you ask a doctor to follow them around for a day. And so it's just you looking at like, what does being a doctor look like? So um, for like in my shadowing experiences, one that I did, I usually do them in the summer. That's when I did them in the past, because there's just not a lot of time in the school year to do it. It was actually my great aunt's oncologist, so that's how I got in contact with them. And and I just emailed her saying like, I want to go to medical school. Would you mind if I shadowed you one day? And obviously just be respectful to their time and like what they prefer and stuff like that, because I've had doctors tell me no before because like they don't have time, or maybe like their patient population's like sensitive or something like that. um so, and then you just kind of go dress business casual and follow them around, ask a lot of questions and see what it's like. So you want to have as much shadowing opportunities as you can. And I definitely would suggest doing a lot of different kinds of doctors. So, like, I did an oncologist, an ophthalmologist, and she was a plastic surgeon basically, but she focused on eyelid reconstruction surgery. She was an ophthalmologist, which is like eyes. And then I also shadowed an emergency medicine physician. So just try to choose, you want to see what it's like in all different specialties, because every doctor is different, like, and every specialty is different. There's different personalities and different ways of life. And so also getting like, maybe look at what a hospitalist does. So like a doctor who works in a hospital versus someone who works in private practice. And so like they have their own practice and their own building and everything like that. So just get a wide array of like different kinds of doctors. And then as for volunteering, you really want to focus on like healthcare related volunteering activities, as well as something not healthcare related. So, some healthcare related things that I would suggest, something I wish I would have done is become an EMT.
Oh, that's good advice.
That's such a great way to gain healthcare experience, and you're getting paid. So, well, I guess that's not volunteer technically, but it's healthcare experience. So the way when you fill out your application for med school, it'll have like, it doesn't say volunteer experience, it says not healthcare related like experience, and then healthcare related experience. So being an EMT would be like a healthcare related experience. And also scribing is a good option if you want to make some money and get healthcare related experience. So what scribing is basically so whenever a doctor like sees a patient and they have to write notes on their computer, or about what they did, what they're prescribing, etc. And so what a scribe does is the doctor just says out loud like, this is what I'm doing, and then the scribe writes it down for them.
Mm.
So you're kind of getting from, and then you hear from the doctor, and they'll explain to you, because you'll say like, I want to go to med school. They'll explain to you like why they chose the things they chose. It's just a great way to get healthcare experience as well. And then another thing that's not paid you could do is like just volunteer in a hospital. But my experience with this wasn't the best, but I did it because I needed volunteer hours. So um, if you can be an EMT or scribe, those are the best ways to go about healthcare experience. And then for not healthcare, you could choose anything you want. So you just need some kind of volunteering. I did nursing home. I like volunteered at a nursing home where I just like helped residents, like I played games with them and things like that. So I did that. Lots of other people do various charities.
Mhm.
Um, and there's just literally no limit to what you can do with the not healthcare side of things. And then one other thing I really would suggest you to do, and this could also be your not healthcare related stuff, is to have leadership experience in some way, shape, or form. So what I did was I was an officer in a club called the Biochemistry and Genetics Society. And so it was just for our major. We also, biochemistry was like a very closely related major with us. We were in the same department and we basically took all the same classes. So that club was just, they had speakers come and talk about research. It was very like research focused and like basically career advice for people in my major. And I was an officer for that. And I like helped run the club and I was the president my last year. So any kind of like leadership experience you can get if you're an officer in a club, that could be, and your club doesn't have to be school related. It could be like the rowing club or the president of your sorority or fraternity if you're in Greek life, if that's something you like to do. So I covered everything. There's a lot you have to do.
So, yeah, you did. You covered a lot. So, tell me about the transition because you did mention a lot of things that you would be doing in undergrad. So, I'm thinking like from high school to undergrad. Like once you are applying to medical school, do they kind of reach like how because I know like when I'm applying for a job, they want your last 3 jobs or your last so many years of experience. So when you're filling out that medical school application, how far back can you go? Because, me being a high school teacher, students want to know, well, when should I mean, I think you should start volunteering at any time just because that's the good thing to do. But when should they start like really getting into that, making sure they do those things? Or even a student who's on it and they are in a great school, what classes, I know that's kind of, I'm sorry, two questions. What classes could they take to help enhance that? Because I know GPA is big, but it's not always GPA. Maybe it's more so about, for example, I'm teaching anatomy and physiology next year. Anatomy and physiology, unfortunately, isn't honors or pre-AP credit. But I think even though it's not, and it won't give you the extra grade point, that still might be a pretty good class to take just because it'll give you an extra edge once you go into undergrad. So I guess to rephrase everything, as a high school student, classes and whatnot, and how far back does that medical school application reach?
Yeah, that's a really important question because med school doesn't care about anything that you did before your freshman year of high school. I mean, not high school, college. So they're only looking at what you did in college in terms of the things I listed for like leadership, volunteering, and shadowing. So I included things after I graduated high school. They don't want to know anything that you did before. So if you're doing all that, you're kind of doing it just for fun. Like you can't put it on your application, unfortunately. But as for things that you should do in high school, I think you should focus on preparing yourself for undergrad. So, like you were saying about taking A&P, that's a great idea because A&P is actually not required for med school. That's not a required prereq. I never took A&P, so I'm just going to go into it not knowing anything. But
Mm-hmm.
if I would have had the chance, I definitely would have taken it. But the more A&P experience you have, obviously that's a good thing because it'll be easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do choose a major that requires A&P in their degree plan, like having taken it in high school would give you kind of an advantage there. But they're going to teach you everything in med school that you need to know. So besides like
Right.
the prereqs. So I'm not too worried about not having A&P stuff. But like I think in high school, just focus on the things you need to do to get into college, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All the things they ask you to do for that. So just focus on getting into college first. Like you'll figure it out. You can worry about med school after that. So
Right. So, I mean, one thing that I've learned over the years and in my years of experience and what I'm trying to teach my students, and let me know if I'm on the right track, Kayla. I'm trying to teach my students to become better students, meaning how to study, how to memorize things. You don't just, or when it is hard, what do? Study skills, time management, those sorts of things. Because, like you said, I guess before undergrad, I mean, they're going to look at your undergrad. So to focus on getting a good place or into a good undergrad, I'm really trying to tell students, like, I know this class might not be the best class or the most interesting class, but, let's work on our study skills. Let's work on our problem solving skills. Just work on our work ethic, that sort of thing, using our resources.
No, that's absolutely correct. Like you should take any opportunity to make yourself a better student in high
Hmm.
school. So,
All
and just
right.
learning about yourself too. Like something that I did that was important in my medical school application and like actually in my interviews like came up a lot was like my experience with music. So I was always a musician. Like I played piano since I was in second grade and I was very involved in band in high school
Yeah.
and middle school.
Hmm.
So that came up a lot. And so I did concert band like that my experience in band led me to do concert band at A&M and I wrote one of my essays about how music has affected my life. Like just kind of finding out who you are is important. Like the things that you like and your interests because that's what because every if you think about it, every person applying to med school is a good student. Like they did well on the MCAT. They did well in their classes. They did amazing on their in their classes and they did amazing in the MCAT or they wouldn't be invited for an interview. What your interviewer wants to know is kind of like what makes you. And like one of those things for me was music. And like actually with one of my interviewers at Long, the school I'm going to, we talked about music because she was a musician as well. We talked about music like the entire time. And I think that connection is like what made that interview so well, like go so well for me. So just like finding your interests, like things that interest you outside of school is important.
I love that. The word well-rounded comes to mind.
Yes.
I just know, because I remember we had this conversation. I was a pre-med major, and I know it's very time consuming, but it's so important. Wouldn't you agree that you keep up your interest, you find that time to pursue your interests, your hobbies, and because they want to know not just what Kayla or whoever can, do on the MCAT. They want to know you as a person, and they, personable people as well, or doctors with personality. They want all of that.
Yeah, exactly. That I think you put it very well. So, and also those interests that you have outside of medicine and like being a pre-med major and stuff, that's what's going to help you through the hard times because
I love that.
like studying for the MCAT is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And when it got tough, like I could take a step back and like I had those things to rely on, like that I had built ahead of time, like playing the piano, like and reading and like just enjoying the outdoors, like things that I've been doing my entire life that I love. You can't lose who you are when you're trying to become a doctor because then
Mm.
you won't have anything to rely on whenever maybe if you don't get into med school or it's not going too well.
Do you know? I have a lot of questions that popped up, but the most pressing one I think about now is because that is a scary thought. Like, I didn't get in, or um, what do I do? Or, oh my gosh, what if I don't get in? I guess, could you talk to that for a moment? Or even, have you heard of any people who didn't get in the first time and they did something else and they got in a year later or 2 years later? Could you kind of talk about those stories or
Yeah.
examples?
Um, that happens to a lot of people actually. And like I think that going into it, your first cycle that you apply, so like they call it cycle whenever like a year is a cycle. So the first cycle you apply is like you're probably statistically not going to get into med school. And I think that you should definitely try, but like you should also be prepared for that and like have a plan. So what a lot of people do is they'll also apply to like getting a master's program, like into a master's program, and it could be for anything, but for like usually like biomedical science, it depends on what you believe is lacking in your application
Mm.
whenever you don't get in. So like for example, if you just did not have a lot of research hours, then maybe in your gap year you would want to like do a lot of research, like become a research assistant and work full time in a lab for like a year and then reapply.
Hmm.
And then, or if you don't have a lot of healthcare experience, you should focus on maybe doing something that I talked about earlier, like becoming an EMT or becoming a scribe. Work full time as an EMT or scribe, get so much healthcare experience you don't know what to do with it, and then reapply then. So, just like you have to identify what your weaknesses are, like later on, whenever you have to reapply, if that happens to you, um, and then decide what to do about it. So, I hope that kind of makes sense. It depends on what you're lacking in that you do.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I've known even friends who, you know, they didn't get in and they went and they've taught for years and then they applied and they got in. So, um, you know, I guess I'm just that positive person. And I just believe that I have a quote in my planner now. It just says, dream until your dreams come true. So, if you really feel like that's for you, I want to just speak to those people. Like, don't give up on your dreams. You know, it's not a hard no, it's just a not yet, you know. I
Yeah,
mean, even older people getting into medical school, I mean, that's a possibility as well.
absolutely. Lots of people apply 3, 4, 5 times, or maybe even like, people do what you said, like where they don't get in, they wait a little while and then they reapply. Like that happens all the time. And I
Mhm.
think if you really want to be a doctor, then like don't give up on it.
Right. Right.
Because honestly, I believe med school's too hard to get into. So
Mm.
I think there's a really big problem with that. Like we need all these doctors, and there's so many qualified people who are applying and not getting in, and
Wow.
that's an issue. So I think before, like, don't give up on that because it's not you, most likely.
Right. So I don't know, Kayla. I mean, I just feel like you would be the type of person who would get into med school administration and change that, you know, because that's something I never even thought about. That's so true. They are needed, they are super valuable, and a test score, you know, doesn't mean you don't know. I mean, come, we know about this whole testing thing, so we're not going to even, you know, get into that. Want to ask you just I guess what are some of the things that surprised you making the transition, I guess, from high school to undergrad to um applying to medical school, getting in? Any surprises, any things like, man, I never expected that? What are some things that, you know, come to mind when I ask that question?
I think the most surprising thing for me was the sheer amount of like extracurricular stuff they're expecting you to do
Mm.
because um I'm not trying to get like too political here, but
Don't whatever you want to do.
I think they kind of students who have to work in school are at a disadvantage because
Mm.
there's not enough hours in the day to like do all everything they expect you to do and like support yourself. So if
Mhm.
if you're in that situation, um I think the best advice is like try to find something that you can work and get med school experience in, like I was talking about
Okay.
earlier. So if you need to work, like try to work as an EMT or a scribe or something like that. I worked as a resident advisor, and
Mhm.
that was a really good thing to put on my resume. And I also worked as a tutor my senior year, and that was also a good thing to put on my resume. So I just tried to find jobs that like um, I could
Double
also
dipped.
yes, I could also
Mhm.
use to like bolster my application. And that was the biggest thing because I was just like, how do they expect us to do everything? Like it was
Mm.
it was overwhelming. And I also I knew the MCAT was hard, but I didn't know it was that hard. So
Okay. Okay, speak to that because I'm imagining these pictures your mom posted of stacks and stacks and stacks of books. And it was like, okay, Kayla's getting ready to start studying for the MCAT. What was that like? What I mean, what was give me a typical day of Kayla studying for the MCAT?
So I took it, or I was supposed to take it in April of 2020, but it got moved back to like June because of obvious reasons. And I started studying like the summer of 2019. So this was
Mm,
almost a year-long process for me. But I'm just gonna kind of like go into when I really started um, focusing on just the MCAT. So like the spring semester that I was going to take it, I took 12 hours and I took easy classes. So the only difficult class I took was biochemistry. It was my junior year of college.
okay.
Oh yeah, I guess I should mention that you take your MCAT like after junior year of college. So like
Okay.
a couple of months before, and you start applying for med school the summer before your senior year.
Okay.
So you want to have enough time to like take your test and retake it if you need to. So most people take it about January of their junior year.
Mm,
So like a typical day, so I was studying like 15 hours a week, I believe, like during my really hardcore studying phase, which was like about January to March before my exam. And that was in addition to the classes I was taking. So I would get like, I think I did my class schedule to where I could get up in the morning and study for the MCAT all morning and then go to class and then work on schoolwork in the evening. So they were like really long days.
mm,
And I was mostly focused on content review and doing practice questions. So whenever you take the MCAT, like it's really important that you do a lot of practice questions, um, especially like 2 months or so out. So um, I use something called UWorld, and I just did all these practice questions, and then when I would get something wrong, I would review everything, and then kind of see if there were any knowledge gaps that I needed to fill, and then I would study. So it was really an adaptive like study plan. I kind of just saw what I needed to work on and then worked on that. And also I was taking a lot of practice exams so that it's really important to take full length practice exams.
mm,
Because the MCAT is an 8 hour long test.
mm-hmm,
It's an
mm-hmm.
endurance test. So
Yeah.
you can know everything and you would be tired and not do good. So it's important to like focus on doing full length exams so you build up stamina. And so I would do those on Saturdays. I would get up and you want to emulate testing conditions. So I would get up and start at like 8 a.m. and then, take my exam with the breaks that they give you. You can look at the specifics of that whenever you get to that point. But, and then after that, on Sunday, I would go back through my tests and review every single question and see if there are like knowledge gaps. And then that's what I would focus on for my studying for the week.
Right. Pretty
So.
impressive. Very good. I like it because I mean, no, it's not medical school, but when we take a test, we don't just say, "Oh, I made an 80." Well, we need to look at every question that we guessed on, and we need to look at the questions that we got incorrectly because, again, those knowledge gaps. And I'm hoping what I'm doing with my students is building just those skills of it's not just I mean, those lifelong skills. And I mean, you're saying it. Hopefully, I can get that through their heads.
Yeah, but I want to like say, don't be scared of the MCAT. It'll be okay. Like everyone gets through it. So I'm
Right.
not. It was really hard, but like I don't want to discourage people from applying to med school just because the MCAT. Because the MCAT, honestly, is if you think about it in this way, if you think about it as like an exam you have to take like just for no reason, or like you kind of have to frame it in the correct mindset that the MCAT's helping you prepare for med school. So like
Hmm.
the sheer amount of information presented in med school is like insane. Like
Hmm.
the the like thing people always say is that like you're trying to take a drink from a fire
Fire
hydrant.
hydrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's teaching you how to study in med school by like
Hmm.
taking the MCAT. Um So if you like kind of frame it like this studying is going to make me a better student so I can be successful in med school, you always have to think about like the bigger goal, like
Mhm.
in your pre-med journey. And you have to learn how to like appreciate like little victories. Like if you make an A on your chem exam, like definitely celebrate that. But you also have to think about like when it gets hard, like studying for the Mcat, you're like, okay, this is making me a better student so I can be a better doctor or so that I
Right.
can do well in med school and be a good doctor and
Mhm.
like save people's lives. So you kind of have to like frame it in that way so you can stay motivated.
I love it. I love it. Do you know, I know it's early, but do you know, have any idea as to what you want to specialize in?
Yeah, I'm still not sure. And I would honestly discourage people from going into med school with a set idea of what they want to do because
Mhm.
almost everyone changes their minds.
Mhm.
But I think that I really enjoyed my shadowing experience in emergency medicine.
Okay.
And so emergency medicine is like my top choice right now, just
Right.
because you see it's so exciting and it's always something new. And you see so many different kinds of people and different kinds of cases that I think I would never get bored doing that. And
Right.
so I tend to like gravitate towards specialties like that. So like pediatrics, because the variety of like patients that you see,
Mhm.
family medicine,
Yeah.
for that same reason, and then like general surgery. So
Right.
things that have a lot of different variety, I tend to enjoy.
I like
So,
that. That's knowing yourself too. That's knowing yourself. So,
but we'll see.
you'll see. Well, and I just think it's part of the process. I mean, you have um a goal in mind. You set the goal, or it's like, I like this right now, but it's okay to change. It's okay. I have students who graduated this year, close to graduating. They don't know what they want to major in. I think that's okay. And it's okay to
Yeah.
change your mind once you start, especially if this is going to be something you're doing long term.
Yeah, you definitely have to be adaptable. I changed my major in college.
Okay.
I started out biochemistry
Okay.
and then I changed to genetics. And I said earlier, like, those are pretty similar, but I changed because biochemistry had a lot of requirements that I did not need for med school that I thought were just going to stress me out.
Hmm.
Like, I had to take calculus 3, physical chemistry, had I stayed with biochem. And I just kind of was like, I don't need that and I don't want to do it. So I changed my major to genetics.
Thank
So
you.
I
Yeah.
don't just do hard stuff for the sake of doing hard stuff unless you
Hmm.
just want to. If you think you would like it, then go ahead. But I was like, I don't want to do this. So I'm changing my mind.
I love
So
it. Yeah. Anything else you want to add or you want to say? I thought, I know you gave valuable information. I'm have students in my brain who are going into college, and they want to be doctors, and then I also think about my freshmen who've already said that they want to do that, and hopefully they'll I when they get connected to this video, it's going to be enlightening. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say to anyone out there about anything?
yeah. Well, I think all this can be overwhelming just to be like presented to you all at once. So I think if you're just starting college or if you're a freshman, if you haven't started college yet, you should look up like pre-med timeline because it'll tell you what you need to be doing and at what time.
I
So
like that.
like as for all of the extra stuff like volunteering, you don't have to do everything at once. You can space it out. Like
Hmm.
and you're not going to be able to do everything at once. Like if you want to start research early and then really hit that hard your sophomore year and then only do a little bit of volunteering like here and there, that's fine. Um I definitely wasn't a typical week as a pre-med, you're not doing every single thing that you need to put on your application, if that makes sense. So you need to like space yourself out and like pace yourself or you will get tired and burn out.
All right.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Kayla.
yeah. But you can do it. If you're thinking about going to med school, you can do it. So,
That's right. That's right. Living proof right here, right here. All right. Well, I am going to close this out. Thanks again so much, Kayla, for this awesome interview. And we wish you the best of luck, girl. Maybe we'll come back sometime
Thank you.
soon. Hey, how's it going? And then I can post graduation pictures because I know it is coming eventually.
Oh, yeah. I was happy to be here.
All right. Here we go. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay.
And let me see.